What's up, everyone? Welcome to this episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. My guest today is Shae Leonard. She is a mood, gut, and health expert. We talk about everything you are eating, what you are missing from your diet, what you are missing from your mindset, the best ways to regulate your hormonal production, and a whole lot more. Enjoy. I like to start each episode off by just sort of allowing the opportunity for you to tell us about what you've been doing, introduce yourself. I want to hear all about your holistic practices, how your impacts with, the female population have been, and just please take it away.
Awesome. Okay. So I had really struggled with my own health issues from a really young age. So pretty quickly, I kind of realized that I wanted to pursue health or medicine in some sort of capacity. So I really kind of struggled for over a decade with my own health concerns and saw specialists after specialists and really had some pretty severe hormonal and brain health things going on and really just had no answers. So I kind of struggled with that all through high school, college, and during college decided to become a PA. So I was still at some of my worst health during that time, but I went to Texas Tech's PA school out in Texas and loved it. It was a great experience and loved PA school. And all I knew was like more of a conventional type setting. That's kind of all I had ever been really exposed to.
Sort of a Western medicine education.
Exactly. So at that point, I started practicing as a PA and I was actually found myself to be at my sickest point. I was working in an allergy and immunology clinic and we were seeing a lot of kiddos and I was sick every single day.
Oh my goodness.
And really some of my other like imbalances and health issues just really escalated at that point. Probably years of stress and school and just this whole dynamic. And so I was pretty much at my wit's end and decided that I needed a career job change. And I thought, what is something I can do that's going to bring my stress level down? And so I went into psychiatry, which I didn't have to be around sick people and touch, people with germs and things like that. And I had my own space and it was just a little more chill environment. And I stayed and worked in conventional psychiatry for over 5 years and loved every single minute of it. It was one of the most impactful learning experiences of my life. And I really started developing a passion for mental health. And during that time, I was blessed to be working with a psychiatrist who had some experience in kind of more of a functional realm. So that was kind of my first exposure. We did genetic testing on our patients. We used herbs and supplements on our patients, even in a conventional setting.
Wow.
Which we were the only ones doing that. It was pretty unheard of. And so that was kind of my first little like toe dip into this pool.
How long ago was this?
Oh, I left in 2020.
Okay, so you were there from, you said 5 years?
5 years.
5 years. Okay, so 2015 is when they were doing that. Yeah, that is pretty early for the genetic testing.
Yeah. So we were the only ones that I knew nearly in Texas kind of doing that, and especially in a psychiatry setting. And so I was still struggling, hot mess, health issues, hormone problems. And I found my first functional medicine, PharmD. And I knew within the first, probably not kidding, 20 seconds that I found my person and for the first time felt seen and heard and hope after I'd seen probably like 20 specialists from all over the country.
What were, if you don't mind me asking, what were these imbalances you keep referencing? What exactly was the problem that was occurring every single day?
So I started having seizures, full-blown seizures on my menstrual cycle.
Oh my goodness.
At 15.
Is that common?
So not back then. I mean, all that they knew was, see neurology, be on medications and blah, blah, blah. And back then when I was in high school going through that, that really wasn't common, understanding that hormones and hormone imbalances can lead to that dynamic.
Wow.
So no,
it wasn't. Does that mean you're technically epileptic?
Yeah, that's what they, that is what they said.
Yeah.
We don't really think that it's hormone related, pretty much. I was really told absolutely not.
That it wasn't hormone related.
Yeah.
Because if it's hormone related, then you're not epileptic, right?
Correct.
That's okay. So you got misdiagnosed as epileptic when in fact it was these hormonal imbalances.
Correct.
Okay.
And then I ended up having horrible gut health issues and covered in cystic acne. Like, I wore foundation on my back to prom. Like, I mean, just obvious.
High
Like,
school.
to me, like, I would just be like, this is obvious inflammation and gut issues and sensitivities and hormonal imbalances. Like, so obvious.
Did
And
you have any food allergies or anything?
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Way later did I find out I actually had a really severe gluten intolerance that was also creating a lot of gluten antibodies and brain inflammation in my brain, which can also lead to some of those neuronal activities, that GABA glutamate imbalance, which can trigger those type of neuroepileptic episodes.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
After 15 years and a lot of schooling. So yeah, I found my first functional person and she changed my life. I literally felt better in 2 weeks than I had in years.
You said PharmD?
Yeah, she was a
PHAR
pharmacist.
PharmD. Where in Texas?
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
And it's a holistic practitioner's location as opposed to a more conventional Western medicine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
She focused in functional medicine. And
What did she do that in 20 seconds made you think, oh, this is the answer?
yeah, exactly. She changed my diet.
Okay.
Not a single person ever asked me about that. Not once.
Yeah.
Did they ask me about what I was eating, my gut health? I had no clue.
What were you eating?
Horrible standard American diet all day.
Like, I mean, fast food?
Fast food,
Okay.
tons of bread.
Because this
cheese,
was, how old
gluten.
were you at the time? 2015.
25.
Okay, so you were, well, yeah, I mean, you're not in high school. I guess, yes, you were just not really caring that much about what you were eating at the time.
No, and I was practicing as a PA. We didn't have nutrition. We didn't talk
Isn't
about
that crazy?
Yeah.
It always blows my mind how many people who are in the medical field
Mhm.
have a very poor baseline of health for
Had
themselves.
no clue how to read a food label. I mean, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And she put me on an anti-inflammatory diet, aka no gluten grains.
Yeah.
Avoid inflammatory oils.
Seed oils.
Eat some whole foods. And my brain fog, and I literally had some of the worst brain fog. It was probably one of my most debilitating day-to-day symptoms, other than like horrible abdominal pain and issues.
On and off your cycle, you would have
Yes.
these abdominal problems like all the
All the
time.
time.
Oh my goodness.
All the time.
For how long?
I mean, I had my gut issues had stemmed like since high school.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So you lived like for 10 years
It was
with
bad.
this problem.
Yeah.
Man,
It
that's
was
terrible.
Yeah. And then, of course, anxiety and panic attacks and all the things that come with feeling super imbalanced all the time.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, in 2 weeks, my brain fog was gone. I had energy again. My husband and I own a gym. So back then, I was doing HIIT 7 days a week.
Mhm.
So that was wrecking my hormones. I didn't eat enough and I ate like crap.
Yeah.
It was just a dumpster fire for imbalances.
Yeah.
Now knowing that.
Uh-huh.
So anyways, kind of speed that up. Basically, it was like, what am I doing? I can't do anything else but this. This changed my life. I went all in. Of course, it took me longer than 2 weeks to heal and address all these imbalances. But she looked at me and she's like, there's nothing else for you to do. Like, you need to go all in on functional medicine.
But all dietary changes are what fixed this.
No, we did bioidentical hormones, some supplements. I, of course, had no B vitamins, worked on my gut health.
B12, that
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
all of those things. Had methylation problems, worked a lot on mindset. She was the first person who looked at me and she said, you will never be free of anxiety until you stop telling yourself you have it every single day. And so now I'm so passionate about mindset, and it was really the catalyst for where I'm at today.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, you did a post, I think it was one of your pinned posts, where you were talking about the correlation between the conversation we have with ourselves each day and the way we feel as a result.
Yeah.
If I tell myself I'm unsecure about what I'm doing, I'm anxious, I am a depressed person, chances are you're going to be those things just
Exactly.
because of the way you have that conversation with yourself, and the body is always going to follow the mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's it's a true testament, I think, to the power of the mind, and I think oftentimes we don't really, whenever we have a problem, it always stems in our body. We don't really think about it as being a problem in the brain or in the mind, so we usually just try to treat the body almost immediately.
Yep.
I mean, I had the worst. I had a shingles outbreak last year, entirely the most stressed I've been in my life, probably just because of a series of unfortunate events like the book. But I just remember when I first had that, it was the same thing. The naturopath I go to was like, "Why are you so stressed?" And I was like, I had thought that this might have been she's like, "Oh yeah, this is very uncommon. This is a result of extreme stress." At the time, I was the work was overwhelming, and I was in a PhD program, so it was just a lot of factors that I actually ended up stopping the PhD program because I was like, you know what, this is just too much. We've got to do business, so I can't do both. But yeah, a true testament to the power of the mind over the body.
Absolutely. And yeah, stress always, anytime I'm working with anyone, I'm like, you can eat all the right things and take all the right supplements and do all the right stuff. But if you're in fight or flight all day and you're in a stressed, chronic state of stress, like your body's not going to heal.
What are 3 good ways that you've found to eliminate stress?
Really focusing on the vagus nerve. The vagus nerve runs from the gut to the brain. It innervates lots of beautiful things. And so I love working on vagal tone. I think it's one of the most helpful things that we can do for stress reduction. So sometimes cold exposure, focused deep breathing, any type of movement, excess hit sometimes is too much especially for women in a chronically acute state, but eventually they can build that resiliency. But honestly, mindful breathing, mindful eating, meditation, being aware of our thoughts, cold water therapy, gargling, chanting, humming, all sorts of things that really stimulate the vagus nerve. Tapping can be helpful.
I've never tried that, but everyone keeps talking about it. Everyone keeps sending me videos about it. Do you know anything about it? I mean,
It's a somatic release. So kind of similar to like you can do really good hugging. You can push up against a wall during a panic attack.
You go like this. You can tap.
All of those things kind of create a somatic type release, which can be helpful to just build some resiliency, and then also they use those things to kind of get out of a panic attack.
And you mentioned chanting. Can you elaborate on that? Because I'm not familiar.
So like even just like stimulates the vagus nerve.
Oh, okay.
The vagus nerve runs through through your larynx, and so any type of humming or
if you could,
gargling,
you can hear it. You can feel it.
Deep gargling can actually
keep doing that, please.
Yeah, just keep doing that. Gargling, it'll stimulate that reflux.
Like with water?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, I've never heard that one.
Yeah.
Gargling with water will stimulate your vagus nerve.
Oh yes, deep gargling.
What is deep gargling?
Like really get in there and stimulate that
as opposed to those weak, shallow garglers.
Seriously.
Yeah, no, that's a really common one. That's a good one.
It is?
Yes.
I've never heard of that.
I have it listed on all my vagal nerve support.
And there's nothing in the water. It's just straight water.
Just water. Can you gargle with anything but water?
I mean, probably, but I would vote just water. You don't want to choke or something.
You're right. That's incredible. I've never heard of half of those. The cold water exposure one I'm very familiar with. We designed in our tub, we actually built a seaboard bed for the person in the tub so that the water level touches your earlobe, so that the vagus nerve is actually touched by the water, by the cold when you're actually in that. Because if you're actually submerged to that point, I mean, that's full body. And I love that. That to me has been probably through and through the most efficient means of really, I'm not somebody who gets panic attacks or has, but I mean, even your everyday just anxiety from the stresses of life. I mean, doing that once a week really just kind of brings it all down. It makes you be present, because whatever it is you're thinking about, it's because that cold water is happening to you right now.
Yep.
You don't have to worry about other things.
I was literally just dealing with that because I did the ice bath for the first time in like 2 years, and like, because stress, anxiety, that's always something in the future. That's always something that you're thinking is going to happen. And there's no better way to be so focused on the moment than doing an ice bath, because you are in fight or flight immediately, and your mind's nowhere else other than get out of the ice bath.
It hones you. You're present right there, and you don't think about anything else. I think it was Huberman said we always stress about the past or the future. We don't ever stay in the present. And that's the cold water is just a really good way of making sure that you're thinking about what's happening right now.
Totally.
Have you ever seen or heard of Headspace, the app?
Yes.
What do you think of that? Do you like that?
Yeah, I think meditation apps can be really helpful, especially if a client's not used to using or doing meditation or being alone in their thoughts, and it's like their first experience, and they're like, my mind's just racing. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes a lot of consistency. So I find that apps like Headspace or Calm can be really helpful in just initiating, getting used to that type of environment. And when you are living in a fight or flight state for 10 years, which is like most of my clients that I'm seeing, their brain never shuts off. So for them to just sit and be still, that brings up a lot of that adrenaline right then. Like they just feel that because they're not used to being in a state of stillness. And when I can't just tell them, just focus on nothing, because they're not there yet. Eventually you can just focus on literally nothing, just your breath. But it takes some practice to build up to that. So that's where I like some of those specific apps, and those lead meditations I think can be helpful.
Yeah. They're placeholders. I agree. The best way, because I think a big magnet for a lot of our anxiety, our stress, is our phone.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, for someone like me who I struggle with ADD, my phone is always within arm's reach. I'm always looking at it. I'm always the app is nice because, like you said, I mean, I went in the sauna the other night and this guy told me this little bedtime story about a hot air balloon floating over a meadow, and I almost fell asleep in the sauna. So it is nice.
Yep.
It's nice having that sort of led meditation, like you said, but I think the goal is to eventually to just be able to sit with your feet crossed, with your eyes closed, silent in a room without any distraction.
Absolutely.
That's hard. That's actually more difficult to do, even for like 5 minutes. When's the last time you tried to do that?
Stay still for 5 minutes.
Stay still and meditate with your eyes closed, awake for 5 minutes, and just be with yourself and your thoughts.
It's been a while. Yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't seem like it would really be that invasive of a task to do. You're like, okay, it's 5 minutes, but you sit down and you try to do it and you're like, oh man, this is really weird. Like I can't stop thinking about anything but what's happening right now.
Yep.
Just learning to be present is it's a task. You have to practice it like exercise. You have to exercise that side of your mind.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a total discipline. And I definitely find that if you're able to be in nature, that makes it a little easier because you can focus on just grounding and, especially like feet on the ground or sitting cross-legged on the ground. And you can just be a little more in tune with your senses, which can bring you very present. What's the smell? What's the wind feel like? What's the sound of the birds? Like that's a really good grounding, good way to be, promote rest and digest as well in kind of a meditative state.
Yeah, absolutely. Where in your practice did you find your niche working with women? Why go so specific?
I work with men too.
Oh, okay. On your page, I just didn't see the helping women heal mood and gut imbalances.
Yep. So I run primarily, I actually started working with men and women. So when I first started, I did men and women. I still have male clients currently. They're just not in my women's group. So I have a women's group, but I see men in a private one-on-one setting.
Okay.
But vast majority of my clients are women, and mostly because of what I dealt with: brain fog, anxiety symptoms, gut health issues, hormone problems. Your only options, birth control pills and Lexapro. Like, okay, every single person I talked to, that was what was told to them. No one had ever really sat down and explained to them what was actually going on. And women largely feel dismissed and unheard. I know my husband's one of the most supportive, and he's like, if I felt like that, I feel like they would have sent me, like if I was telling someone like I have this going on, like I would have done everything. And I feel like everyone around me would have done everything to figure it out. And unfortunately, I feel like oftentimes women are dismissed.
They say, hey, something is wrong.
You're just a mom. You're tired. You're just too stressed. You're just, without any real explanation, just exercise more and eat less. It's very, just take this pill. It's just very dismissive, and really a lack of education. But I think that's in oftentimes, not all the time, but I think that's largely kind of the setup now. Not for anyone's fault. I don't think necessarily it's a bad intention. I just think that that's what the model is. It doesn't allow for 45-minute visits of education and support and inspiration and empowerment, which was my biggest thing. I felt very helpless, hopeless, and unheard. And so when I finally felt seen, that was like, I know that's what I want to do. I want to make women feel seen and not dismissed about their chronic symptoms.
Would you say that's the primary difference between men and women when it comes to these kinds of problems? I mean, are there others? You say you've worked with both. What are the primary problems that men and women face in this area, and are they different?
Yeah, I would say most of my men see me for gut health and mental health. Largely not having as many of the hormone issues necessarily until we get testing, and a lot of them have low T, which is very common at this point.
Crazy, right?
Yeah. And of course, they're kind of, the first recommendation, I'm not saying it's always, not helpful, but the first recommendation is testosterone therapy, when really nothing about nutrition or xenoestrogens or endocrine disrupting chemicals or stress or insulin resistance was ever discussed, which is really what's driving that estrogen up and pushing that testosterone down. How has no one told you to do weight training? Those type of things are not being discussed with men either. And that plays really critically into men's mental health. So I tend to see that connection largely.
Yeah. Yeah. And women, what would you say is there? You said it's more hormonal. Do you think, what is your opinion of birth control? I mean, is that a driving force behind these problems that women are seeing?
Yeah, I think it's great for birth. I don't think it's good for balancing or anything else. So
it's good at regulating.
It's regulating
getting pregnant.
Birth. Yeah,
I
think that's what it is. And if you need that because the stress of something else is, the main driver, okay. But as far as the dynamic of you have hormonal issues, so let's take a birth control supplement to fix your hormonal imbalance. It does not fix hormonal imbalances. It actually shuts off hormone production. So the second you come off of it, things are 100 times worse. They're synthetic hormones. They degrade the gut lining. They worsen, they decrease B vitamins.
All of them?
Yes.
I mean, every single form of female.
Progestin. Synthetic progestin and synthetic estrogen. Like a Paragard IUD is a copper, so it's non-hormonal. But the hormonal synthetic birth controls, yes.
What do you think about, because you mentioned the low T. Have you ever heard of, and what is your opinion on the theory that the commonality behind birth control and the number of women that are on it is actually driving male testosterone down? Have you ever heard that?
Not necessarily as far as the research behind it. I wouldn't say I'm super familiar of like what that looks like, but I do know how much it does change male to female interaction, pheromone wise,
yes.
and things like that. Very familiar with that. And that's definitely accurate. So, I mean, hormones are so interesting. They are picking up and reading signals every second. They react in real time to our environment and each other's environment. So of course I could definitely see how that's very possible. Yeah.
I'm curious, and I've always wondered this, because I mean, male and female, we both produce these pheromones, which are essentially the dating drugs that attract us to one another. Female pheromones are negatively impacted by birth control. Are male pheromones impacted by synthetic testosterone? Do they increase? Do they decrease? Do they stay the same? It doesn't, because it doesn't seem like, I know there's research to support the fact that if you are on TRT, your sperm count is lower, is lessened. Does that also do that to your pheromones?
That I'm not for sure. Exactly what I was about to say. We know the impact on fertility, but as far as how it impacts pheromones, I wouldn't say I'm for sure on that one.
Frankly, I don't really even know that much about. I know pheromones exist and I know what they do, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they're called. I don't know when do they do they appear and then disappear similar to a menstrual cycle, or do we always just carry them around with us?
They can be different depending, kind of like you have to think of like a dog, like that's very similar, just being an animal in general. They can change, of course, because of the menstrual cycle.
Okay. Gotcha. For women though, but
yes.
For men, because men don't have a menstrual cycle, do
Correct.
we just certain men emit pheromones at all times and just either attract or not attract women based on what they're
emitting?
As
far as I know, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it's interesting. It's so weird too that we can't see them, we can't smell them, we can't sense them, but they're there and they're working. And you meet a person and maybe it's even somebody that you're like, oh wow, this is interesting. I'm like weirdly attracted to this person. How much of that is because of that interaction that pheromones are having just organically?
Yeah, totally interesting.
Yeah.
So I had a question, because you mentioned that number one, birth control is really good at regulating pregnancy, but it's really bad at regulating hormones and everything like that. I've had a few friends in college that were put on birth control in like high school because of like acne or hormones and stuff like that. What is a good alternative that they can look to instead of getting on birth control at such a young age? And they're not sexually active. It's just literally for skincare or hormones.
Yes, I love that, because I was placed on birth control at 15 for acne and period problems. And it worsened every dynamic that I dealt with. And I see so many young clients. I work with many different ages of women, but I see very young clients who it really disrupted so many things and we're just going to repair it. And I also feel like the awareness behind that is gaining a lot of traction, which I'm really happy about, where I'm getting these 18, 19-year-olds who are like, hey, my doc told me to just go on birth control and I don't want to. I think I want to figure out why. And that's what I always ask, why? There's always a reason. Acne is a signal of imbalance, period, and PMS.
Even at such a young age?
Absolutely.
Because at 15, your hormones are raging. You're going through puberty. So is it still possible to regulate those hormones even at such a crazy imbalanced age?
Yes, because what we're looking at is almost always what's causing that hormonal issue to be a problem. Mm-hmm. Is it food problems? Do we have chronic stress? What's our gut health look like? Do we have these B vitamin deficiencies? All of these things it will impact our hormones, which can create this imbalance, but acne is multifactorial. Right. You might be a high converter of testosterone to dihydrotestosterone, and you get acne as a female. You might be prone to a PCOS dynamic, which increases your testosterone, which is creating that dynamic. But what led to that? Maybe it's insulin resistance. Maybe it's poor standard American diet. Maybe it's high stress, which increases blood sugar more than dietary factors.
Which every single 15-year-old on earth has a lot of stress and eats food for. I mean, every 15-year-old I've ever known is not eating clean. Like they're not having their meals unless their parents are weird like me. I mean, other than that, everybody sends their kid like, all right, figure it out, stupid. Like, have fun at school. It's not, and it sucks too because it seems like that's the age where it's almost more critical that they are eating very clean, that everything is balanced, that you're literally setting up the foundation of what kind of human being this person's going to be. And I'd say I turned, and I'll kind of take the credit for this because we didn't really have anybody in our family who was like, eat right. Like I turned my attention toward diet when I was probably 13, 14, where I was like, no, I'm not eating in the cafeteria anymore. Like I'll bring something, I'll cook something different. Like, no, I'm not going to eat pizza. I'm not going to eat. I started because I had found bodybuilding and I found my passion for the aesthetic first and foremost. But as a result, I really, really focused on diet at an abnormally young age.
Yeah.
And I kind of never stopped.
Wow.
So that to me is why at that young age, you see most of, and today it's so much worse. You see, I can't say I spend too much time at high schools, but you drive by and you see them, they look horrible. You're like, oh man, like I can count 8 of them that are definitely overweight and another 8 that are probably obese. Yeah. And it all seems to be stemming from the way that we're feeding them.
Yeah, exactly. That's where it's like, it's not just the acne, right? They're often, most likely they're struggling with obesity, anxiety, mental health concerns, depression, poor sleep, an addiction to phones. Like, it's never
video games, screens.
That's where like we have to see the whole picture, and we have to be like, okay, we don't just treat the symptom like it's one tiny spot on the leaf. We need to look at the whole tree, the whole environment, the whole soil. Like that's the whole picture, and why I'm so passionate about holistic health. Because what I don't like is you have acne, so I'm just going to treat the acne. Let's put you on
Clearasil.
Yeah, let's put you on benzoyl peroxide and Accutane, and don't ask any other questions about all these other dynamics that are a problem.
Right.
And so that's where I say, like, these are symptoms or signals of imbalance, and we need to really do the investigation into looking into those things.
And when a person is using birth control in the right way, that is specifically to prevent pregnancy, or do you think there is a right way of using birth control?
Using birth control?
I think that you can be very proactive by taking a B vitamin, for instance, because we know they deplete B vitamins, taking really, really good health, care of your gut health, maybe being on a really good probiotic, and really, really listening to your body and being very in tune that if things do not start feeling right, I'll never tell someone like that's not an option for you, just because it just totally depends on the person. But I don't see that. I don't have any clients staying on them. No, that's for sure.
So you do not recommend, I mean, if someone comes to you and says, okay, I don't want a kid, you say use condoms. I mean, is that your answer? That's
the preferable. If you know for certain that you can manage discipline. Truly, because
Yeah.
it depends. Is this a 15-year-old or is this a 30-year-old married person? Because there's a
does it
difference.
matter? I mean, from a hormonal standpoint, does it matter if it's a 30-year-old or a 15-year-old?
No, not from a hormonal standpoint, but just from a
Activity.
like what's going to worsen stress in somebody's life?
A little closer to your face.
What's going to worsen stress?
You can pull it too, Shae, if you want. It'll move however you want to move it.
So I would say, the stress of maybe going through that at 15 versus, someone who's just trying to prevent it and heal their hormones and they're not just ready at that time, but they're married. There's just a lot, fertility awareness method is what I recommend for individuals who
knowing when to not have intercourse
Yes.
because you are at a very
and it's
fertile.
extremely accurate, but you have to pay attention. You have to test. You have to do these type of things.
That's what they say. Tracking your cycle.
Yeah,
That's what that means.
You have to track. And so if you are someone who's 15 or 16 or 17 and you're not going to do that, then I feel concerned saying the only option for you is fertility awareness method. When, of course, that's my favorite option. That's amazing because it also helps women get pregnant all the time.
Because they know when
they
to
know
have sex.
exactly. Yeah. And they're not taught that at the OB. You don't get taught those things. Absolutely
Really?
not. You'll go 1 year without being able to conceive, and not once has that ever been told or discussed. Most women I talk to have no clue that there's only 6 days out of the whole month that you can even conceive.
Can you break down the cycle a little bit for us? I mean, because we're guys, we've never even heard how this works. So if I'm somebody and my wife wants to get pregnant, how long does this cycle go for? You mentioned a year. Is it 1 calendar year, is 1 full cycle? Or we're
No.
talking monthly?
Monthly.
Monthly.
Yeah. And it varies. So that's where testing is really important. Technically, 28-day cycle is considered the norm, but that can vary from 4 days before and 4 days after. Some women can ovulate monthly, which is releasing of the egg, which is where we want to have, that's ovulation. That's where you want to have intercourse. There's that one day.
If you want to get pregnant.
If you want to get pregnant, because there's only 1 day that you ovulate. You only release an egg 1 day.
In the month, you only have 1 day.
1 day, but
Wow.
sperm can survive in the uterine and fallopian tubes for 5 days, which is where we get the 6 days.
Okay, so if we're creating a pregnancy window,
Yes. It's about 7
about
days.
7
altogether.
days. So you would want to have intercourse every day for 7 days in that window to try to get pregnant.
Yep.
And if I'm not trying to get pregnant, how big is that window?
We typically like to keep it about 7 to 10 days.
Oof.
So that
That's rough
means
when you're married.
Oh, that's rough. So that means for, let's say,
A week out of the month.
a week out of the month you can have sex. Yeah, that's not gonna work.
It's the opposite.
the opposite.
It's the opposite.
I'm saying if you don't want to get pregnant.
Yeah, if you don't want to get pregnant, there's a week out of a month that you cannot have sex, or the likelihood of getting
okay,
pregnant.
so 3 weeks out of the month you
Yeah.
can have sex.
Correct.
Even though
it's still tough. 'cause
Even
you're
though
a
it
week.
says, even if it lasts for 5 days, you still can do it for 3 weeks, or would you want to avoid those last, 5 days of the 3rd week before the ovulation window?
You want to test for sure, and you're going to know because it's different for every person. Technically, you should, in a perfect cycle, you should ovulate around day 14 of a 28-day cycle, but some women ovulate on day 17 or 18. So, and it can vary per month by a couple days. So that's where doing basal body temperature, cervical fluid, you have to test these things, and then you'll know.
Wow.
You'll know.
Isn't some of the testing like first thing in the morning? You have to stay perfectly still and do different testing, or I haven't heard all of the details, but I'm curious.
You can do basal body temperature first thing in the morning, and the higher it is more likely you're close to ovulation. And then you can do LH testing, with urine strips first thing in the morning. But then they have these amazing fertility monitors like Daisy Tracker, and it kind of keeps everything good for you. And they have a lot of great options for success that really keep you above that 97% chance of not conceiving. It's really good percent.
Wow. Yeah. Wait, so if you're in the right when if there's a 97% chance you will get pregnant if you're inside.
I don't know. That kind of brings a little bit more factors into play because we have to think about egg quality, sperm quality.
I was going to say, and
that
the man.
changes a lot.
If the man is
Yeah.
properly equipped, then that window is your best option.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime I'm working with someone with fertility, that's one of our main concerns is making
Do
sure
you work
we're
with
ovulating.
fertility? I mean,
Often,
you work
yes.
often. Oh, wow. Okay. Again, just out of my own curiosity, how small does this window get? I mean, does it get to a point where you're like, okay, this is the day, and this is a 3-hour window in the day when we absolutely should do it? I mean, for those people who are really, really wanting to make it happen.
Yep. If you're really testing, your LH can spike in the morning, and then it might spike higher at 1 p.m. in the afternoon, but you would want to test that. So if I'm having someone test their luteinizing hormone to see if it's increasing, we want it to keep it above 1. And it may spike at 1 p.m. Well, you know, there's a good chance you have 24 hours. So yes, you can get it down to a pretty good little science.
Little science, yeah.
But I always recommend at least, you know, I have some women, it's like, okay, at least 3 days before, you know, and then the day of your spike, and then you're kind of good to go.
That's great.
But that's not taught.
No
one's told that.
I've never heard any of this. This is crazy. And so then for the other side of the equation, is there anything that the male counterpart can do to increase his chances at achieving the goal in this small window?
Yep. So definitely you can abstain from ejaculation for a few days before, just to kind of...
How many days?
As long as you're able. But regular is helpful in general. But what's
regular?
I don't know. I wouldn't be able to say for sure. Per month.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to say for sure. Like scientifically, I don't know the
Got
research
it. Okay.
behind it.
So interpret that word as you may. Regular is healthy, but if you know your window is coming, best to abstain for 48 hours and then hit it in the window.
Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. But the biggest thing is also going to be sperm quality and DNA quality, which is really going to come back down to the same things that I'm working on with women, which is avoiding toxic chemicals, avoiding saunas and baths and things.
Avoiding saunas.
Yes, it kills the sperm.
No kidding.
Hot baths, especially that week. That week before. And then if I'm resetting someone, like helping someone reset, we actually... men are lucky, they, you know, repopulate pretty regularly, so we can do like a 3-month protocol to get their sperm really healthy and have that like brand new cycle come through. But we're really...
a 3-month protocol where like not doing a sauna would be part of that protocol.
Yes, but largely dietary changes. Stop eating a standard American diet. Start exercising. Take B vitamins. Take antioxidants. Take omegas. Take some, NAC. Just some really good boosting quality and antioxidants. Anti-inflammatory support is really huge and
ice bath.
Really helpful.
I've heard the reversal of ED and the increase of testosterone from ice baths.
Yep.
So that and you mentioned exercise. Lift heavy.
Yeah, heavy.
Lifting it. I think they said deadlifts. Deadlifts are the single greatest exercise for increasing your sperm count.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, it's just primal.
So if you don't want to get pregnant, don't deadlift, sauna every day.
Sauna every day.
That's what I'm hearing. Okay.
Exactly.
Perfect. Got it down.
And of course, no smoking or drinking.
None.
Yeah.
I heard a weird one that I wanted to make sure I brought up, and I wanted to know if there was any truth to it. Wear loose underwear.
True.
True?
Yes.
Oh, get out of here. That's crazy. Have you ever heard that?
Careful with constriction.
Yeah. If you wear loose underwear, you're more fertile.
I have heard that. What about, I've also heard like the cell phone in your pockets. How does that affect everything?
Yeah, we're just now starting to get a lot of good research on EMF. And yes, we do know there is some sort of degree of impact for males and females in not just fertility, but just in the large sense of health. AirPods being so close to the brain, your alarm clock being so close to your head, just so many different things out there.
Wi-Fi in the air
everywhere. So it's pretty early as far as like a lot of substantial evidence, and especially long-term evidence of actually what we're looking, but it's pretty obvious, like it's probably not good.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much the whole kind of gist of it.
Yeah, they say that your phone gives off the same type of radiation as like a microwave if you left the door open or something like that. Have you seen these cases? This is an EMF protector.
Yep, I've seen this.
TUCCH. Shout out to them. I like these. I've seen the ones too where they have those little tabs that just go on there. But this one I like too because I think it serves two problems. I actually like that it closes the face of the phone. So for me, because again, my ADD, if I just see a buzz and I see a screen, I'm like, ugh. This way I can actually not look at it and it won't bother me until I open it.
True.
But this I also have seen that there are ways to actually shield your room from your Wi-Fi. You can actually, there's this little device that will cut off from a certain time when you sleep, which I want to talk about sleep too. I know that has a big impact on your hormonal balances, on your cortisol levels, and on your testosterone count as well. What, if you could, we just had a guy on here who his whole MO is sleep, but I wanted to know your opinion. What are a few things that you think sleep plays as a role when it comes to hormonal balances for men and women? And what are ways to maybe help people sleep better?
Yeah, I love this question, and I've done a lot of talks on sleep. It's really important. It's one of those kind of non-negotiables as well, of like, if you have health problems going on, it doesn't matter what I do or what I try to fix or what you eat. If you're not sleeping well, then good luck. Like, it's just not, we're not going to be able to heal. Sleep is really important. We make hormones, we make immune white blood cells, we repair damaged tissue, we process heavy emotions and toxins. It's just really, really critical. So making sure that you have a really, really healthy circadian rhythm, and a good way to tell that is if you naturally wake up before your alarm every day and you're getting a good 7 to some women 9 hours of sleep per night, pretty uninterrupted, waking up refreshed is a good way to know. But poor sleep has a lot of things. Oftentimes, it's really the basics. I spend a lot of time with people who are struggling with sleep or have been on multiple prescription sleep medications for years and years. And I talk to them, and I very quickly realize they don't even give their body the right signals that it's time for sleep. And that's the problem with most people is, are you telling your body that it's time for rest? And no, you're watching the crime drama on your phone with TikTok, eating snacks, and you turn off the lights and you're like, go to bed. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. No. And that's what 99% of people struggling with sleep are doing. Yeah. And that's where we have to have proper sleep hygiene, which is not the fun, sexy, like, give me a supplement. It just is the basics of lifestyle that you have to implement. The cave people, the sun went down, we're all together. It's dark out. There's nothing else to do. You just sleep. You start secreting melatonin due to darkness. Cortisol,
unless it's your window, then there's something else to do.
Exactly. Unless you're being chased by an animal. But cortisol competes with melatonin directly. So if your cortisol is up at bedtime, you're not even going to secrete melatonin.
Because you're stressed. For those who don't know, cortisol is the stress hormone. Yep. Melatonin being the sleep hormone, which we naturally secrete both. Yes. I mean, it's not, I know there are supplements, not to simulate cortisol, but there are supplements that will give you more melatonin, which we just had,
Todd Andrews.
That's it. Yes. Todd Andrews was just talking about this, and his whole company is sleep. He was saying that the melatonin supplement industry, extremely unregulated, actually very irresponsible. What is your take on that? Have you had any brush up against that?
I don't typically use melatonin. Actually, I do use it for fertility, which is funny. It's actually a potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory. It's also part of my COVID protocols. So really? Melatonin can be used for that, but for sleep, I never give it. Oftentimes, we see B6 deficiencies. B6 is a precursor to serotonin. Serotonin is the precursor to melatonin. So we see that dynamic a lot. What depletes B6? Birth control pills. So like for me, that's a very common dynamic. I see 75% of the population's magnesium deficient. So oftentimes supporting magnesium is really helpful for those individuals with sleep, especially in an acute setting. But at the end of the day, it's lifestyle and stress, really focusing on getting sunlight during the day, not being sedentary, eating a healthy diet, focusing on rest and digest state, and then having a good sleep hygiene routine. An hour before bed, I love my clients to turn off all their lights. You can have orange glow or red glow, no blue light, none. Sleep with a sleeping mask. Make sure it's really freezing cold in your room and have lots of blankets, like 64, 65 is like ideal. Sleep nude, also very helpful.
Really?
Yes. So
why?
Regulating body temperature. It helps you not just like wake up in the night sweating, which a lot of females struggle with.
Okay.
Yep.
So lots of blankets, but no clothes.
Yep.
And there's a difference?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So those kind of things make a world of a difference. I also, for certain individuals who are mouth breathers, really working on mouth taping's awesome. And then during the day as well, making sure that you're closing your mouth, you're breathing from your belly, breathing through your nose, being mindful of that is really, really critical.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned light. Red light, you ever do any of that?
Love red light therapy.
Yeah, red light therapy for me. And I know the sauna may have a negative impact on testosterone count, but before bed, the sauna, because it's so relaxing. And for me, I like a combination of the two. I'll go back there, I'll do the sauna, and then I'll do my routine getting ready for bed with the lights off, just the red light on.
Yeah,
and
love it.
That's great because, like you said, when we were in the cave, when the sun went down, that's how we knew, all right, it's time to go to sleep.
Yep.
Well, this at least simulates the sun frequency going down, so at least our brain can wrap our head around calming our thoughts instead of ramping them up when you're looking at your phone and the movies and everything like that.
Totally.
Yeah. Wow.
I had a side question. It's more of a personal question because you mentioned white blood count and how important that is. I got my blood work done. I was actually pretty low with my WBC, and it was because of my neutrophils. And we're testing again in like 6 weeks, so then I'll kind of have a baseline of what that range looks like.
It was because of your what?
I
Neutrophils.
think.
That's right.
Okay. The neutrophils.
What's a neutrophil?
No idea. I was literally
white
about to
blood cell.
ask. Yeah, it's a type of.
It's a type of white blood cell. It's typically elevated in an acute infective state. So some sort of like acute infection, even potentially viral, could be bacterial. And so most likely it will just resolve on its own. That's probably why they said, just chill. We'll recheck it in 6 weeks and hopefully it looks lower and kind of move on from there. But lower white blood cells in general can be definitely associated with like nutritional deficiencies, which are needed to make white blood cells. And then of course, autoimmune dynamics and things like that.
Diabetes, what was it? Lupus. You mentioned a couple others that you looked up on that list.
Yeah, I can't remember at the moment, but yeah, there's a long list of autoimmune diseases.
HIV. But no. What was the resolution to that? I mean, did they give you any advice?
I'm getting tested in 6 more weeks.
Okay.
Getting another blood work panel done and just seeing what it looks like at that point.
What was your because I remember we were both curious about the range of testosterone in men. Do you have an opinion on what range is particularly healthy? And I mean, I like numbers. I like having some kind of a set in stone. All right, if I'm at 600 to 900, I'm optimal, and I'll leave it alone at that. But I've known guys who run lower, and they're like, yeah, but I feel fine. Like, I don't think I need to do any of this. Or guys that run high, and they're like, I feel terrible. I mean, how much relevance does that number really hold?
So I love talking about that in just general, even speaking of what he said, because that standard deviation, that standard reference range is rarely optimal. It's taken from a whole group of people who are going to get blood work, which standard American getting blood work is sick, right? So, a vitamin D level range is 30 to 100. If you're 30, you feel horrible, seasonal depression, vitamin D is a pro hormone. I like people between 65 and 75. You go above 100, you can actually overdo it on vitamin D. You can worsen immune system health by taking too much vitamin D.
Interesting.
So It's the same thing for all of these things. The worst thing I hear is, well, my labs were normal, but I still feel like crap, which is something I hear all the time. And it's like, your labs are not optimal. They're suboptimal for thyroid, testosterone, whatever the case may be, because the average testosterone range, which does vary lab to lab, is 200 to 900 or whatever it is, 1,000.
Yeah.
Well, yes, most men, I see men at 23 years old with a testosterone of 200. They're struggling. Most of them are not doing well.
When you see that, what's your first reaction? What do you typically tell them?
I always focus on lifestyle changes. Definitely. That's my main focus. And we test these hormones. So I look at I look at things like DHEA and I might use something like that, depending, but obviously focusing on diet and weight training and things like that right off the bat. But I think it does vary per person, just like anything does. But of course, like 600 to, for some people, 850, 900 is really awesome. I think if you're, below that and you're feeling crummy, I would say that makes sense, type of thing. If you're at 300 and you don't feel good, I'd be like, makes total sense.
It's the standard deviation also, because it's such a big wide range. I mean, there are people like I had a friend who's 21 and he was somewhere in the 2s. And I also have a mentor of mine. He's 74. He runs at 1100 and he's not on testosterone. He's not on anything.
Yeah.
So there are weird.
It's different for each man.
I know. He's 74.
That's awesome.
Insane. Isn't that crazy? He's like, I don't know. I mean, he works out 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
So he's kept himself in incredible. This is Chuck. He's
I assumed that was him.
I'm sure he's very healthy. I would love to know what his other labs look like and his, because a testosterone at that level, but maintained is
tired mind.
Yeah, it's so good it's so cardioprotective actually long term. If you keep that, if you have heart disease and then do it, it's not. But cardioprotective and protects against diabetes and brain health and all of those beautiful things. So be interesting. I bet he overall is pretty healthy with that level.
Yeah. What do your programs look like? I mean, if someone was to work with you, how do you structure all that? What do you do? What's the duration of time? What's the commitment level? How does that work?
Yeah. So I have a group one-on-one hybrid specifically for women, and we work together for 6 months, and we do functional medicine testing right off the bat. So the first thing we do is in-depth stool, hormones, nutrient, inflammation, heavy metals, and genetic testing.
I was going to say, is it genetics? Yeah.
Yes. So we do all of that right off the bat. And I put them all on something I call a rapid relief protocol, which is typically a couple targeted supplements, maybe like magnesium and whatever.
Do you have a supplement line that you like? Do you have your own supplement line?
I don't. And I use a variety of many different companies depending on kind of which one I like. So I actually don't stick to a specific company.
That's good, because then you're not locked into any one affiliation or anything like that.
I like lots of different kinds and brands. And so during that rapid relief, I mean, believe it or not, I see symptom resolution often 90+% symptom resolution even before we get testing back, because we're working on lifestyle changes in that 8-week period. We do live group calls twice a week. We meet privately one-on-one 1 to 2 times a month, and it's concierge. They can message us anytime, which is pretty much unheard of even in like a brick and mortar with someone like a naturopath, because the model's just not set up for that capacity. No. My client says, hey, I woke up and I don't know what to eat, or I woke up bloated. They're messaging me right away, and we're addressing it right then. So really so that's kind of the type of support we have. And I wrote an online course. We do live group calls, like I said, twice a week that are recorded. It is definitely like drinking from a fire hydrant, because I tell my people, I want you to become your own health coach at the end of this. This whole idea of like, people don't need to know how to read labels. They don't need to know how their body heals from the inside out. They don't need to know about their mindset. They just need to go see someone and have them told. I don't believe that. This is our one and only vessel. And I want you to become your own health coach at the end of it. So it really is like a mini functional medicine course with targeted protocols and mindset and so on and so forth based on the individual.
I love that it's 8 weeks long. I love that there's that time commitment too. I mean, that's big. That's a difference than going to a naturopath, because you could just go to him one time and be like, all right, here are my labs. What do I do? And you'd be like, all right, well, you see you're missing this, so we'll throw you on this and we'll see what happens, and we'll see you later.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I get a lot of problems, because they're like, well, I've been working with this person and it's kind of been helpful, but it's been 2-3 years. And I'm like, we need to get all of this addressed in the next 6 months. And how we do that is by communicating weekly. We're staying on top of it. And we're doing food diaries, movement things, mindset. We're not just saying, here's your labs, here's your supplement at all. We're largely focused on sustainable health. How do we maintain this long term? And how can I always tell people my mission is I want to help you heal you so you can help others heal too. And that's always my goal, is like at the end of it, when people are like, my parents and my grandparents and my kiddos, they're no longer struggling with these issues because they're coming to me. Because when you're an expert, it's so much easier for you to sustain it. So that's where I want my clients to be at the end of our program.
That's so great. If someone wanted to get in touch with you or wanted to actually sign up for something like this, where would they go?
So you can go straight to my Instagram. There's a link in my bio where you can actually book a call directly onto our calendar. You can also kind of go through and view my website and a few different things like that. So
great job with your social, by the way. That's
Thank
a
you.
very healthy page.
Thank you.
How long have you been implementing that? Is that your primary marketing strategy, is social media?
Yeah, that's where I pretty much have always been focused organically through Instagram primarily. I dabble in TikTok here and there, but I get a little burned out if I do too many different platforms.
Oh, I know. Well, that's why we split them up. We each pick one and we delegate, because otherwise, you're right. Trying to manage them all it's a task. It's a full-time thing.
Definitely.
Okay, so that's great. So Instagram is where you would say for them to go.
Yep.
Just check that out. Click the link. Is there like a phone number or an email that they go to if they want to actually get in touch with you?
They can always message me, but I just always recommend to just click that link in my bio, and that will take them to 3 options: book an info call, learn more, or you can actually join my private Facebook community, and I will
cool.
reach out to you. So
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Shae. That was a lot of fun.
so much fun. I feel like
was
we could have
great.
talked about a billion things and kept going for hours, so it was good.
Definitely. And did the smell go away? Because I don't smell anything. It seems like it did.
How about we end and then we can talk about it?
We had something die in the vent. Maybe.
We're nose blind now. We don't know.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming.
Thank
Seriously.
you.
That was a lot of
Loved
fun. And it's some really helpful stuff. I know that's going to really attract a lot of people's attention. Some
Cool.
really, really helpful stuff.
Thank you guys.
All right. We'll cut it there, buddy.